Hey guys, and welcome back to The Cave. I am the Bearded Padawan, and today I thought I'd share with you the top 5 movies that I've seen in theaters in 2017. So as you might have guessed, I'm doing this video before The Last Jedi comes out next month, and I know Last Jedi is going to take the title of #1 overall because huge Star Wars nerd. But I figured, you know, that aside, I could go through and just share my top 5 movies that are already out, and yeah, one of these 5 is going to get knocked out of place number 5. But, you know, it was so hard to choose even 5 right now because I've seen probably around 11 movies in theaters this year so far. So, in no particular order, we're going to start things off with Logan. Now, as I stated in previous videos, I went into this year not being the biggest Marvel fan, and the biggest tie that I had to Marvel was the X-Men series. And Logan came out, and it's Hugh Jackman's last time portraying Wolverine, aka Logan himself. And, you know, it was definitely a great way to wrap up his character, really, you know, even open doors for a continuing series with X-23. I really appreciated the relationship between Logan and Charles, as you see Charles' mental state is deteriorating, and Logan's obviously starting to physically slow down with the adamantium poisoning, if that's what it is. And if anyone officially knows, please let me know, because I had a couple ideas of why Logan was, you know, aging and scarring up more rapidly, but I didn't ever really come to a conclusion. But, yeah, it definitely had the old man Logan feel to it with the comics. It set up X-23 perfectly. It was very nostalgic, tore at the heartstrings a lot. It was definitely an emotional watch, so that was definitely one of my top films that I've seen this year. Next up, we've got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And I know a lot of people will debate me on this and be like, "But Mikey, the first one was better!" Yeah, well, I enjoyed the second one a lot better, to be honest. And I might just be biased because I thought the soundtrack in 2 was far more entertaining than 1. I mean, the movie opens up with Baby Groot dancing to Mr. Blue Sky by Electric Light Orchestra. Do I have to debate or argue anything past that? No. But, you know, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2 were big gateways, again, into the Marvel Universe, apart from the X-Men series. Really enjoyed the animation and cinematography on it. I thought all the actors did a tremendous job. I've been a big fan of Chris Pratt ever since the Lego Movie and Jurassic World. So it was definitely cool. And underrated is Dave Bautista as Drax, because he was in that. He was also in Spectre with Daniel Craig, which I thought he did a phenomenal job with that. I was not ready for that. Yeah, it ended on a really nice note. And I'm really excited to see where they go with the future of Guardians of the Galaxy, just between the cinematography, the casting choices, the soundtrack. It's just, it hits me right in my feels with the old 70s and 80s music. Moving on, at number 3, we've got SpiderMan Homecoming. Again, I know I'm opening a big can of worms because some people prefer Tobey Maguire for X, Y, and Z, or Andrew Garfield for this, that, and the other, but I personally really think they did a tremendous job with Tom Holland, you know, starting Peter off at a younger age, staying more true to the comics where he has the web shooting devices. He just did a tremendous job both as Peter Parker and as Spider-Man. While they had Tony Stark / Iron Man in it, it wasn't too overbearing, so it was nice to really focus on tying in Spider-Man to the new Marvel series, since we saw him briefly in Civil War. Michael Keaton as the Vulture was just... he was incredible as that role. That movie threw me for a bigger loop than I expected. Everything was just executed wonderfully. I really can't wait to see where they go with Tom Holland at this point with the Spider-Man series. It's been a really long time since I've been hyped on Spider-Man, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what Marvel does with that. Finally, jumping out of the list of Marvel movies, at number 2, we've got War for the Planet of the Apes. Now, this is the third film in the new Apes trilogy with Andy Serkis as Caesar the Ape himself. It had been a really long time since the first one came out, and when I saw this one was coming out, I realized that I had a bit of catching up to do to prep myself for this movie. I went with my two good friends, Dan and Aaron Bear, and the night before I binge-watched the second one, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, just to kind of, refresh myself, and I hadn't seen the second one before. Going into War for the Planet of the Apes, you can kind of feel more sided on things with the humans because of how Rise of the Planet of the Apes went, and then you're kind of at a middle ground with Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and then by the third one you see the Colonel, Woody Harrelson's character, is just being a straight up jerk to everyone around him, especially apes, hunting them down and killing them and capturing them, when Caesar and this group they just want to be left alone and do their thing. Like, it's that simple. So it was really cool to see all the Easter eggs to the Charlton Heston ape films and ignoring the Mark Wahlberg Apes movie. But it was really cool, and kind of wrapping things up with Caesar's story. Between that and the motion capture for all the actors like Andy Serkis and Steve Zahn as Bad Ape, just how they did that with all the processes of, working on the speech patterns for these apes as well as, like, the motion capture and the suits themselves, it blew me away. And, Andy Serkis is no stranger to motion capture. Along with this movie, he's done stuff for Peter Jackson's King Kong, Lord of the Rings with Smeagol, and he is also now Supreme Leader Snoke in Star Wars. And he's easily becoming one of my favorite actors lately just because of all the motion capture stuff he does, as well as his voice performance too, because he's just tremendous. But I guess as of last year, before this even came out, they're already in talks for a fourth one. So we'll see where they go with that. I'm really excited for that one as well. And at number 1, I have Blade Runner 2049. Now, the original Blade Runner came out in '82, way before my time, but it's been one of my favorite cult classics as of late. Now, obviously there's a huge gap between the first one and Blade Runner 2049, and they really played that to their advantage well. I was a little bit skeptical at first casting Ryan Gosling because, to be honest, he's not one of my favorites, but he really portrayed the character of Officer K just tremendously. While the story of the first one centered around Deckard, they didn't make his presence overbearing in this movie, but it was satisfying enough and there enough that it really helped you connect to the nostalgia factors of the first one. And just like the first one, they left things really ambiguous and opened at the end. I guess they're still in talks on where they're going to go from here. I really hope they choose to keep going forward with this series. It's just been tremendous. It really poses a lot of deep thinking questions. Again, the cinematography on this film was just mind-blowing. It was really cool that they kept with the traditional synth-heavy soundtrack. And again, Dave Bautista, even though he's only within the first 5 minutes or so of the movie, did a fantastic job. All the casting choices for this film as well were just so well done, and I really think it did it justice living up to the first one, despite what a lot of critics and news outlets say. I generally don't trust magazine hype on whether a movie's good or bad, but it's definitely one of those movies that I would sit through the 3 hours again in the theater just to watch it. So yeah, let me know in the comments, what are some of the favorite movies you've seen in theaters this year? Anything coming out soon that I should check out? If you've liked what you've seen, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed, please do so already, and we'll see you right back here with the next video.